On the Friday, I left the campsite by Loch Carron, drove round Loch Carron towards Calsh. But before that, I drove to Dorney to see the famous castle called Eilan Donan, which everyone will see in a minute. And there you are, spectacular. It's picture perfect, really. And it was a nice day for it, as you can see. Absolutely amazing. So I walked across the bridge and had a tour, but not before taking in the view. As is always with these castles, the current owners don't actually live here. They have vast estates in different places, so they probably spend their time in the home counties and the south of France. It was the scene of some fairly important parts of Scottish history, including Jacobite rebellions, and has been besieged and attacked and destroyed and rebuilt quite a few times. Inside is really well laid out. There you are, frigates bombard Jacobite stronghold, 1719, with 48 barrels of gunpowder, destroyed it. And then it was rebuilt. It's actually only been rebuilt in its current form relatively recently, so it's a little bit fake, but it looks nice all the same. Then you can go up onto the top, get fantastic views. And there's an extra part which you can't film inside that has got various relics. It's quite worth looking at though. But the view is spectacular. Lots of tourist shops to buy stuff. Then I drove on. This is a big day going to the Isle of Skye. And there you can see the Cullins in the background after driving across the Calsh bridge. You get spectacular views. Skye, in fact, isn't anything like as exotic as I thought it would be. In fact, the areas I visited before are much more impressive. These are the famous Cullin Hills, which were made famous by the two guys of which there's statues, and is now famous for mountaineers everywhere. Then I drove north again, off the west side of the island, towards Dunvegan, and in particular Glendale. Again, not as rocky as other parts of Scotland I've visited, and the roads are just so much better. You have to stop to admire the view occasionally. That's the Isle of Rasa, opposite Skye, long thin island going down the right hand side of Skye. You can get boat trips across to it. And finally Glendale, where my grandmother grew up. It's hard to believe in the early 1900s that my grandmother and her relatives lived in this tiny little village. Lots and lots of cottages, and there was a community centre that I went to, but the woman who ran the local shop actually came from Solihull. Then I drove further up to the edge, and you could actually see Harrison Lewis in the background. But everywhere you go, there are just lambs, sheep, and they're not bothered. He's not moving. Driving back, similar scenery. Beautiful though. Harrison Lewis in the background. campsite I was at was in Dunvegan. Pretty spectacular view. After I parked the van, I walked down towards Dunvegan Castle. Just absolutely spectacular views with the weather being so nice. The next morning I visited Dunvegan Castle, seat of Clan MacLeod, but of course the actual clan leaders live in London or somewhere else, even though they've got this amazing castle to live in. It does actually look quite nice inside. That was the dungeon. Does seem lived in, although it isn't. And the rooms do have certainly important historical significance in Scottish history. This is a through the keyhole type view of everything. What's surprising is it's actually quite shallow. It does seem quite livable in a way. Apparently the owners do use it sometimes for formal events, showing off to their friends. Spectacular views though. Obviously various members of the clan. You can get outside and walk around there too. This is the study. Very impressive. Again, that's the entrance hall. This is quite a nice room. Spectacular portraits and a lovely piano. Again, this is a castle which is important from the historical perspective. That's the dungeon we're about to see. Oh my god. Oh my god. This room has lots of Jacobite history in it, including a lock of Bonnie Prince Charlie's hair, and also Flora MacDonald's stays, would you believe it? So lots of things from the Jacobite history. And fabulous views. This is the Great Sword of Dunvegan, a claymore. Various Pictish stones. Then outside, fantastic views from the battlements. This was originally completely surrounded by water and fairly impossible to break into. But then other parts have been added over the last 100 years or so. This is the servants' quarters, a bit more typical. And then outside there are some absolutely lovely gardens, best gardens I've seen in Scotland so far. Everything laid out beautifully with every plant, lovely waterfall and wood features. Again, you can't believe that people would own something like this and never really come here. Then I drove on to the north of Skye, and the old man of store is there, but unfortunately I couldn't be bothered to walk because the wind was awful, so I stayed and had a cup of coffee and a cup of cake, a piece of cake, and looked at the view instead. I then drove down to Portree, which again is beautiful on a nice day, but very quiet, considering it's the most important town in Skye. Totally dependent upon tourism and fishing. rush hour in Portree.